Okay. Notice I took my shirt off so that you can see the strings better. I wanted to talk again about the center complexity, but this time I want to do a simple test pattern of left, 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 and left dominant switch, left dominant switch, which should work together and make a more or less symmetric pattern. And if I wanted to encapsulate that, I would take plus 2 halves up through the index, minus 2 halves up through the ring or the middle finger, up through and up through in the center, and then I would do my for loop in a weak net out. Very simple little look to see what occurs when you try to do everything the same way. Okay, here I go. I think I did everything correctly. And there we are. A simple little, rather symmetric, if I can, there we are, symmetric figure. And if I were to turn it around, so you can see what I see, you will see that it is a fairly simple little figure. And of course, it maintains fairly well its shape because it is symmetric, even though you jostle it around. And that is what happens in symmetry, or pseudo-symmetry. Of course, it's not symmetrical because we have a chiral universe, as I have said before. It just looks symmetrical, and it's pleasing to the human eye. Now let's try a double, again, LL, L, and then a double left dominant switch, and a double left dominant switch, to see exactly what that does in the center. Again, I'm going to encapsulate it with my simple pattern and finish. And turn so you can see. And let's see if I can fluff it a little bit so that the symmetry is apparent. And it's rather difficult to do because my hands are not even. But I can try to grab it in such a way I can't do it, that's funny. That's more or less what it is. It is fairly different because you have the double little loops, and those double little loops slide, and there we go, that's a little better. You see those double loops, little loops around? That is consequence of the double left dominant switch, and it is a different resultant with a very simple difference of input of information. And just for a completeness of what we're talking about, let's do an asymmetrical figure. Let's try the LLL, just to keep our base information the same. But instead of doing a left dominant switch, let's do a right dominant switch, which, if I remember right, in the little video I made just before this one, causes a bit of a mess as opposed to symmetry. Okay, so we're doing left dominant, or left, 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 a right dominant switch, and a right dominant switch. And then I'm going to encapsulate that. We have been all along here. There we go. And you can easily see, just without my having to turn it around or anything, that there is a fairly straightforward asymmetry involved. And it's, anyway, it's not really that much of an asymmetry whenever you really start looking at it, except that center line running down through there is the consequence of the left, 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 and then the right dominant switches, whereas as I get further out into the figure, away from that first center complexity, I begin to get a more symmetric reality. And if I were to build out further in a symmetrical way, I would have a symmetrical net of some nature, or at least a repetitive pattern, around that center complexity, which is obviously asymmetrical.